Hey, so let's get into the body a little bit more, the Igbo idea of a person. This image on my screen is an early 20th century image of an Igbo woman. And you can see from the remarkable presentation of her hair that we can assume that she might be perhaps a senior wife. She might hold a high position of status in the Umuada. And as we thought in the previous lecture about the material body, the ahu, the role of the head, this clearly is a way for the body to ornament and accentuate then the power and authority of this woman. So perhaps rather than sharp with the head, one might be thinking distinguished with the head, right? So now let's go from the ahu to the non-material, or the mo, the human spirit. And I'm going to pull up my tacky and pathetic. I would be a whiteboard person in a regular classroom. To think now about the non-material. And again, we're going to recall that Agbessiere starts wanting us to think about that the Igbo notion of the person accentuates a sense of personal responsibility to oneself and for one's actions. And so as we move into the non-material, again, her question will be, what are your moral responsibilities? What are your actions? So the human endowed with ndu, life, which relates to the Greek, she says, to the Greek psyche, for those of you who are either in psychology and are familiar with that, but a sense of that animating life force, that when you are thinking about not only that material body, but the muo, the human spirit, the question becomes, what is your responsibility, and to what extent are you dealing with external forces that are regulating your world in ways that are beyond your control? So once we've moved into the immaterial, then again we still have this question about, wow, if something as powerful and intangible as a spirit, a life force is working in you, which elements of that are outside of your control, and which elements are you generating and able to harness, able to direct? So we'll get a picture here of two central forces, part of the immaterial life, the Chionya, and that then is understood as your personal destiny, located again, head and limbs. The association of those two carries through with your personal destiny, that this will be a matter for the isi and the uku la'aka. So one place with your chioni, your destiny, where one is understanding that there are external forces, might be something like a prolonged illness. It looks like, maybe you are drinking water and yet you still have diarrhea. Maybe you are, something has harmed your destiny with this long-term illness, and it does not seem to be your fault. Now, the chi resides in the extremities, the head and the limbs, and it exerts, nevertheless, an ambivalent effect on the whole body. So just like the head can't tell the limbs to move without moving through the lungs, the afo is still going to be there. In this case, the chi and your destiny, while it might reside in head and limbs, is nevertheless like there's a way that this connection between your destiny and your capacity to impact the afo with your choices, with your movement. So they are not just unrelated spheres. With the case of the muonye, the This is understood as your personal spirit, and it survives after death. And you can also think of this as your will. So the mmuonye, personal spirit, that will that you see, any of you who are teachers looking across your classrooms, you'll see different kinds of wills at work. Parents, you'll see different wills at work in your children, those kinds of things. So the personal spirit that survives after your death in your will is going to be located then in the afo, in that trunk area. So if one is needing to build up the will, then that's going to be maybe a matter of the right herbs for the liver, or the proper foods then for that stomach to be strong and promote your courage, right? So when you, nevertheless, in these external forces, a sense of destiny, and that special characteristic of your will, that there are still choice becomes the ground between what is outside of what you can and can't control, and whether you are moving towards your destiny in the right spirit, or whether you are resisting your destiny and making bad choices. And this is quite interestingly, again, I've got that woven through the center, because what the hand does will lead and be related to the will or the soul. And so there's this complicated interaction through there. And I love the fact that then there's going to be two areas of choice happening, right? There's going to be the head choice, which, and they call the gray matter of the brain marrow. And again, think of this. These are people who are cracking open bones. So they know about marrow inside bones. And so you've got all of this stuff inside the head that's kind of that same gooey consistency. So brain marrow choice. How's that? That the mind is doing some of the choosing, and that's a person's responsibility, compared to a heart choice, right? That jaw-dropping image that alters where your love goes, or the person who becomes your best friend for life. Those kinds of heart choices also then, so that Igbo idea of person is going to include not only external things that are beyond your control and a kind of internal Afo will that is unique to you, but also then gray matter choices, your brain marrow choices, and your heart choices. So the spiritual life then might be understood as, how are you taking your steps? How are you walking between the forces that are beyond your control and the choices that you are making? So I hope that's at least a little bit of an encapsulation, summarization of the non-material body. Thanks.